I've been freaking out about this for months, standing on stage in front of you, the anxiety and the dread and the despair I have felt over these past few months. I've been seeing a therapist because of these feelings. I've asked friends for help. My wife has had to deal with even more of my bullshit than my normal amount of bullshit, which is a pretty good amount of bullshit. I've upped my Xanax prescription. I even signed up for a fancy pants workshop about public speaking. That was actually pretty good. I fantasized about a new strain of the pandemic to avoid this moment. And now I'm coping with this moment with a pre-recorded video to hide from the inevitable. Here's the thing, I really like you. Like, I'm honored that you'd come to
insert location here
for my
insert event here.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that I'm proud to stand up in front of you, but that's not because of you. It's because of me. I might not be proud to be here because I'm not always proud of myself. Pride is a complicated thing, and especially in the age of social media, it feels like there's this whole chutes and ladders game going on between pride and shame and regret, except I'm always kind of falling down the chutes. So let's talk about shame for a minute. I like to joke about shame a lot. If you would ever dare to say that I have a platform for anything, it would be for shame. The first words on my website are, I'm sorry. I built a mobile app just so that I could share my regret and insecurities to friends by text messages. I bump into a wall, and the first thing I do before wondering if I broke a toe is to apologize to the wall. Mostly it's funny because underneath all these gags, I mostly feel okay about myself. Like, I've worked through most of my shame and self-loathing, even though it feels close enough to home that I can easily write stories about men who are still struggling with it, like the main character in my novel, who hides in the office bathroom to work through his personal struggles. But I'm way different than that because I hide in an attic bathroom. But I've learned to keep the shame at bay. Maybe I've put it in a cage. But when I feel like I'm being judged in front of an audience, even a supportive audience like you all here at
insert location here,
the shame is capable of breaking out of this cage, ripping through my bloodstream, blowing right into my heart. 10 years ago, I stood in front of hundreds of people at Powell's Book and shared in the joy of my debut novel. This was a dream of mine, to be at one of the fabulous Portland bookstores reading from my book. I honestly can't remember the event so well. I was just so nervous being on stage. I just really did not take in the moment. And it makes me think about a good friend of mine, Stephen Allred. When his first book came out, I remember how he stood on stage and smiled with glee at the audience. He stared at the audience for maybe 20, 30, 40 seconds, just taking it in, just giddy about this moment. My first thought was, that asshole. Because I was so jealous. Like, how is he able to do that? To just appreciate this moment that I really want to appreciate too, but can't. Anyway, now it's 10 years later. I can proudly say that I can share with the world my 7th book. Wait a minute. What? I'm being told that this is just my 2nd book. Anyway, I'd still like to say that things are a bit better in this realm of taking in the good and not dwelling on the bad. Maybe this is because I'm just getting older. Maybe taking care of a kid has allowed me not to worry so much about my own crap. Or maybe because I can write stories about very similar schmoes working through their almost the same but slightly different crap. And unfortunately, because things are so fucked up all around the world, it also puts my crap in perspective. But sometimes my shame can't be put in perspective. I mean, it took me enough over these months to actually, at some points, want the pandemic to get worse. Ugh, gross. That's pretty awful. Anyway, so about my bookie thing that's coming out. Let's talk about it for a second. I didn't specifically write a book about shame or dread or anxiety, but I did write about humility and about how messy it is the way we communicate with people online and offline, and about how one awkward schmo might learn how to form real bonds with real people online and off. If things go okay today and I'm able to continue to stand up and remain conscious, then you might hear a few pages about this character. But at the moment, I'm worried about the character behind the character because I am just seconds away from having to speak with you, like in real life, like with pants on, probably. No hiding in my attic recording this well in advance of the event while lying on the floor. And I'm trying to remind myself to keep cool. If I try to tie this up in a pretty little bow, we'll all know it's bullshit. I don't know how to tie things up in pretty bows. So let me just admit that I am scared as shit right now, but I also want to be here with you for this.
Insert event here.
At this amazing.
Insert location here.
I want to share this with you. You in the front row, you in the back row, you in the background only half listening. I want to make a connection even if I'm kind of scared as hell about it. You know, I don't want to be bursting with shame and dread and regret, but I also don't want to be hiding my shame in a cage, actually. Maybe there's something more accepting than just a cage. Like maybe I'll let the shame roam around here in the audience, but not let it ooze into me or you or anybody else. Maybe I can just rise above this whole low self-esteem shame bullshit I've been carrying around all these decades. And I can just appreciate this human connection that is scary as hell, but also kind of necessary for me, for you, for us. Thank you. Hi, thanks so much for watching this YouTube video. This is kind of like the modified version of what I've done at some bookstores to talk about my new book, which I should have in hand, but don't. I'll be right back. This thing. So I did this at various bookstores. I would play that animated video, and then I would get up on stage, and I'd show some slides while at first talking about my book and then reading an excerpt from my book with some other visuals. So let's do that thing. Move myself to the corner. And then now let me just talk about how I wrote this book. The story of how I wrote this book maybe has to go all the way back to 2007. Back in 2007, I was a badass at Facebook. I don't mean to show off, but I was posting Facebook statuses like a boss. Long before my boss was my actual Facebook friend. This was back when your status was just a text field that said Yuvi is blank. I don't know if you remember that. I mean, not Yuvi is, but your name is blank. These are some actual status messages from 2007, back in that short-lived period where I was decent at social media. But the years went by. My Facebook friends were no longer my real friends at some point. You know, I was friends with the kid I babysat 37 years ago who peed on me, I think. And then my relatives were Facebook friends, and the friend of a friend of a friend that I probably shouldn't have befriended was my Facebook friend. The algorithm got creepier and scarier, and I lost my social media voice. A few years later, I started working at a startup company in Portland, Oregon that did online collaboration software, kind of like Facebook for internal communication. And I started thinking a lot about how complicated it is the way we keep in touch with each other, how we communicate with each other, whether it's in real life with our actual mouths or using one of our many devices and our many apps on our many devices. Even if it's amazing, it's also complicated in new ways, and that was kind of the birth of this novel. So I'm going to read to you a little bit from this novel. My boss tells me it's embarrassing that I've been here for 6 years and I'm still at goldfish status. Ever since we installed the gamification plugin, he knows exactly how many likes I've gotten from coworkers, exactly how many comments I've made, exactly how many virtual pints of beer I've received. He even knows how many animated cat gifs I've gifed, which is 0. We get points assigned to these various activities and are assigned a status level based on our points. I'm a goldfish, even though some 6-monthers have already leveled up to penguin. My boss is a blue whale. He tells me this morning that I need to @mention more people in my posts. The chief technical officer needs to know what I'm up to. People need more visibility into what I'm doing. But what I'm doing a lot of the time is hiding in the bathroom and writing stories about my dead grandfather and failing to @mention the people I especially don't want to @mention because I'm all @mentioned out. Oh, sorry, my face is covering up the little guy on the toilet. But anyway, this is just to tell you that there were certain spots in the presentation where I would actually say on the slides, Yuvi interrupts, and I would just tell a little story about the writing of the book. In this moment, I would talk about the fact that I did write a chunk of this from the bathroom of a day job. I'm sorry. Let's get back to the novel. Look, Collaboration Hub is not a bad place to work. They're good people. The online collaboration software they make is a good product. They give my family, or at least me and my boy, good health insurance. It's really true that they take collaboration to the next level, trademark. But I don't want to collaborate at this level or the next one. When I get back to my desk, I see that I have some private Collab Hub messages waiting for me at my laptop. They're from Anne, my coworker, who has dedicated too many office hours trying to save my floundering life. She says she'd be happy to set up a personal profile for me, either on OkCupid or just on our internal dating group. At Collaboration Hub, we use our own software to collaborate with each other, and we have over 4,000 social groups, which is pretty impressive and pretty horrifying for a company of 321 employees. Anne sits at the desk next to me. She looks so focused at her two 25-inch monitors, like she is doing nothing but serious work. There's a small desert rose cactus between us, sitting on her desk that she overwaters. She claims it has a beautiful flower, but I've never seen one. We've moved beyond cubicles around here. Cubicles are so 20 years ago. Here we just have these big, ugly slabs of pressed wood pushed up against each other, making little islands of desks, about 4 together at a time. Anne is on my desert island. I lean over and talk to Anne old school with my actual mouth. Just what I need, I say to her, to date an effective collaborator at the next level. She whispers to me over the cactus, I can @mention you in the singles group, or the just for fun group, or the divorcee group. I remind Anne again that I'm not officially divorced. She says she's even willing to @mention me in the semi-safe for work kinky group and pet lovers and lonely guys. I hate pets, I tell her. She gets up and walks right next to me. I can smell her perfume, some kind of flower that my wife and probably my son could identify instantly. Saul, it's been 2 years since she left you. Divorced or not, y'all are done for. Anne's southern accent comes out when she's frustrated with me. It's comforting, her accent, even though I know it came along with some history of abuse and collard greens. I also grew up in the South, but living in the suburbs of Atlanta with Jewish parents threw off the accent. Anne makes it seem like 2 years is a long time, but it doesn't feel so long to me. Some days I still unthinkingly drive home to what is now my ex's house. I'm trying to finish my novel, I tell Anne. She takes a deep breath and then sighs. I love my friend. She never lies to me. When she's exasperated, she exasperates. Anne thinks I'm wasting my time with my book. She likes to remind me that I've been working on the stupid book longer than my boy has been alive. I regret confessing that detail to her. My debut novel was published to a lukewarm audience 10 years ago, and the audience is not even luke cold at this point. The book is toxic to you, she says. I see it on your face. I take a selfie with my iPhone and look at it and delete it before it syncs with the cloud. She's right. I need to finish my book before my father dies, I say. He's the only one still alive. I need to finish telling our story. So whose story is it exactly? Anne says to me. Oh, it's my grandfather's story, but it's also my story, but also my dad's story, but really my story. I tell her all this even though she knows all this. I know she's about to point out that since it is my story, I can tell it any time. There's no ticking clock, even if my dad is 88 years old and going blind and deaf. I mean, she says, did the Klan even try to destroy your grandfather's store? Anne looks at me like she won the game. My friend takes things too literally. She doesn't understand that fiction is more true than what really happened. In the novel, my Polish Jewish grandparents opened up a dry goods store in 1938 in a place called Stella, Georgia. In real life, it happened in 1931 in Waynesboro, Georgia. In real life, a drunk man stumbles into the store and warns my grandfather about the Klan and then vomits on the floor, and that's that. In the novel, this man is in the Klan and he nearly destroys my family. It's a brilliant book. It's a disaster. What about your boy, she says. Oh, he's not in the book, I say. But he's already 7 years old. You're a hell of a counter, I tell her. I'll @mention you in the Math is for Fun group. Go take him somewhere fun, she says. Get to the beach before the summer is over. Take the attention you give the book and give it to your son. Let the book go. Imagine what you could do if you let that turd go. It hurts when she calls it a turd. A burden, yes. A thing that is killing me, yes. Something that destroyed my marriage and has stunted my growth emotionally, maybe. But a turd, that's going too far. I say, the beaches here are cold and rocky and windy. When I was a kid, we would visit my grandparents in Savannah and swim at Tybee Island. The beaches there were warm and beautiful, and there was that rickety dock that I loved to sneak onto when my parents weren't watching. I would look out at the ocean and pretend that the Germans were attacking because my dad once told me he did the same thing back in 1941. Except I didn't know much about Germans. I had seen those pointy helmets from World War I movies, and so that's what they wore when I imagined them capturing me on the beach. My grandmother died in 1983 when I was 12. My grandfather, Papa as we called him, died 5 years later. Those 5 years were years where I got stuck listening to his stories. I hated being around him in those years. I did it because you have to do those things, but he scared me. His beard smelled like a rotting log, and he would weep into his ice cream cone. At the time, I focused on the wasted ice cream. Now that I'm 45 years old and failing to write a novel about him, and that failure has taken me 9 years and 7 drafts and counting, I know that I should have been paying it more attention. The poor old man. It's easy when you sense dying to run away, but now I know that dying means it's time to come in even closer and listen to the whisper of it. Papa, I want to say to him, I'm sorry I only paid attention to the ice cream. And that's about it for this video. At bookstore events, after my reading, a writer friend would come up on stage and we'd have a conversation about something that we were obsessed about, but also related vaguely to themes in my book. And then I do Q&A at the end of that. But for this video, I think we're done. I'll post some other videos soon. Thanks so much for watching this longer than usual Yuvi video.